If Robert created this technology, why haven't you used it for such a long period of time?
I haven't been using the technology much because of what it reminded me of, the problems with Sandra, the problems with other people. She was at that time selling her linguistics on cassette tapes and realized that she had an incredible way of pulling audiences in.
You mentioned other people. I know that you had a kidnapping attempt.
Yeah, there's some people that made some claims as to how it would help me, but it just didn't feel right.
And these were the same guys that actually broke into a home to try and take you out.
Yes.
Why haven't you spoken up sooner?
It was because it was difficult to speak up. I didn't have a platform. I needed help on handling that kind of aspect.
How did you originally envision this technology working?
It was spiritually. It was consciousness evolving. My intention is always to make the technology better, make it applicable for what people are looking for.
With everything that you've been through, starting with a tough childhood, to more specifically over the past 30 years with everything that we spoke about here, where does forgiveness play a role in your life? Robert, it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to sit here with you today. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. A lot of people from all around the world, as you know, have asked to hear from you directly. So before we dive in further about this incredible technology that you created, your intentions behind it, the miracle stories that we're seeing all around the world with people having incredible experiences and impacts, I first want to say thank you very much for giving me your time today.
You're very welcome.
I think it's fair to say that you've been waiting over 30 years for this moment, to have a platform to be able to share your story, a platform where people are ready, willing, and able to hear you. I know that you've been doing your best to get the word out there, to speak up, to bring the truth to the world, and a lot of people haven't been listening. But with all that's happened and all that's unfolded over the past few months, over the past almost year, I've come to know you better. I've come to learn about you better. I've come to learn about your background, which is why I really wanted to have this interview today, to not only give you the chance to share your story, but also to understand what was your upbringing like? What's your background like? How did you create all of this? What's your inspiration that led to the incredible, incredible experiences that people are having all around the world? Because while you had the intention of expanding consciousness, when building this technology, building this program, the repercussions have been tenfold beyond that on physical implications, people seeing incredible spontaneous healings physically from all different aspects and all different levels. So there's a lot of people that want to learn about your background, and I think that that is the best place to start before diving deeper into the technology of who you are, where you come from, what your childhood was like, what your family's like, and how all of that shaped you into the person that you are today. So why don't we start with the very beginning? Where were you born? When were you born?
I was born in Chicago, Illinois, September 7, 1951. And I moved out here to California about age 5.
So you're a Virgo. You're very analytical.
Yeah. Not just Virgo in the primary, but in the secondary aspects too.
Really? You're a double Virgo. What was your childhood like? Tell me a little bit about your parents, your father, your mother, your siblings.
My life was very difficult. My father would hit us in the face. He wanted things his way and no other way, and really wouldn't describe what exactly he was looking for. He thought that slapping us in the face was the absolute height of fatherhood.
So your father was very abusive. How do you think that impacted you today in terms of how your childhood was with a father like that?
I was dealing with incredible amounts of stress, physical and emotional stress.
From, let's say, the emotional aspects of your childhood that came into your adulthood.
Yes.
I know you have a brother and a sister. Were you ever married?
No, I was never married.
Ever had any kids? Was that intentional?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, because I knew that I had no basis for being a good parent. I took one look at the way other families interacted, and I go, we had none of that, in our family.
You didn't have the tools that you didn't really get from your parents because of how you were brought up. I think that's a very mature way of seeing the world. Most people are very selfish. They don't care about any of that. And they say, okay, I may not be a good parent, but I want to have a kid. So they do it. So, I mean, I give credit to you for that, because that's a very, I would say, evolved and mature way of looking at life.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about your education. So 16, 17, 18, around then you go to college. Where'd you go to school? What'd you study?
I went to California State University, Fullerton, obviously in Fullerton, California, and I majored in computer science.
So this was around the 60s. You hear about a computer for the first time. What got you interested into computer science and programming? Like, why that of all things?
I remember, well, years earlier, I was sitting in the front room, and a special came on about computers, and I looked and go, my God, they're here. And I turned to my father, who was in the living room, and I go, we've got these computers here. And he goes, yeah, well, we have them at the bank. I go, well, what do you do with them? And he goes, we balance checkbooks. That would not have occurred to me in 10 years. That they would waste the power on balancing a checkbook. We have a small desktop computer at the high school I went to. And when I found out about it, my brother was taking a class with that teacher. I went over and said, teach me. And over the next 3 days, basically I had 90% of the computer understood at that point.
So in 3 days, you sat down with the teacher in high school before you went to college to actually study programming. I guess you must have been obsessed with it to be able to figure it out that quickly.
Yes.
What kinds of things were you doing in your beginning stages of programming?
The one thing that they had on the computer was a very simple screen, and the program would run. You'd launch it, and then you'd select what missiles you want to fire and what direction, what speed. And I just picked it up and ran with it.
So you were programming more like games?
Yeah, I was programming immediately.
What kind of work did you do after graduating college with computer science and all that knowledge? What followed that in terms of your actual experience in life?
I got hired on as a programmer analyst for Control Data Corporation. And it was in terms of creating new algorithms and modules for the new series of control data machines that was coming out.
So you were building like new operating system modules?
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting. What else did you do after that?
A friend of mine was working for Laser Images, and he got me hired there to do programming and analysis. And so I worked there for 4-ish years or so.
I know you mentioned you were also working earlier on as like a programmer for laser light shows back in the day.
Yeah.
So between all of that professional experience with programming, building new operating systems, and I want to make this clear, you're a programmer, you're not a doctor, right? You're not a medical doctor in any way. I want to understand what happened between this idea and practice and experience of computer programming and computer science to this thing. So when it comes to this actual program, I know this configuration as a pyramid is newer, but when it comes to this actual program, the technology behind the light system itself, at what point did you actually create this technology, the source code behind the light system itself? What year, more or less?
89.
1989. So you were about 38 years old. Let's go to your inspiration itself. Like, what actually inspired you to create this thing? What was your intentionality behind it? I know you mentioned something that happened around your 19th birthday. Maybe we could start there and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I was sitting in my room, and my mother comes and goes, Robert, KPFK.
KPFK, the radio station.
Yeah, the radio station. Why? Well, there's this person, Ramdas, is talking. I turned on KPFK, and my mind was just blown. I'd never heard anybody talk about aspects of the spiritual like Ramdas did.
So on your 19th birthday, when you first heard Ramdas on this radio station for the first time, was that sort of the beginning of your journey of entering this new world of understanding spirituality?
Exactly.
You mentioned transcendental meditation, chanting, certain things that you were doing. Can you explain what you did over the next few years after your 19th birthday, and then we'll come to understand how you actually landed at technology.
I went to many different lectures by different people talking about the different aspects of meditation. And slowly but surely it dawned on me that even though these were good practices, the meditative techniques of the whole Eastern religion people, they were still stuck in a hole in the ground, whereas they weren't really moving forward. The chanting that they did was really no different than the chanting they did in year zero. But the amount of effort you have to put in to making anything function like that, and I'm thinking to myself, look, we can create a technique where we can have the computer do the physical manifestation of meditation.
So you kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you wanted to take your knowledge of the transcendental meditation, the chanting, seeing what they did in that way of life with spirituality, merging that with your knowledge of computer science, computer programming, and almost like use a code that you're creating and expressing through a computer to change the energy or the consciousness in a room during meditation.
Very much so.
I got to ask you, how did you originally envision this technology working or being used when you created it? Was it more clinically, like for a medical practice, or spiritually?
No, it was spiritually. It was consciousness evolving. I started in about 1980 and it came to fruition in 89.
And it was all based on the practices of what you were learning, but you were implementing the spiritual aspects into the actual computer aspects.
Yes.
You know what I find interesting? Your original intention, which you're saying directly to me, had nothing to do with physical healing, but more so to do with conscious expansion, expanding awareness.
Yes, very much so.
What I find in my work is, while that was your intention, we're looking at what this technology is capable of doing and what it's doing. I mean, you're seeing people's eyesight get better. Their hair is growing thicker. Their back pain is going away, all the way to crazy, crazy, crazy severe ailments that people are actually going and reversing. And when you say that your original intention was conscious expansion, and yet we're seeing the impact being, in a way, self-healing on a physical level, I always do my best to find the connection between those two. And what it seems like to me is that when you expand consciousness and awareness, the byproduct of that may lead to many different types of things.
Absolutely.
One being physical coherence.
Yes.
At what point did you realize the technology can do a lot more than what you actually intended for when you originally created it?
It was the first night I turned on the program. When I had written the very first version, and I turned it on, and you go, wow. And just like, consciousness exploded out of the computer screen.
What did you feel?
Like I had walked onto the astral plane, a different world.
So you're bringing a lot of spirituality while using this physical component or physical product to do it, meaning there's obviously an intention of bridging the physical world and the spiritual world. So when you and I spoke about it, you mentioned 3 different planes. You mentioned the causal plane, the astral plane, and the physical plane, going in order from least dense, so most fluid and fundamental, to most dense, being the physical. Can you explain how that plays into your creation of the technology on these 3 different planes and how the technology interacts with the causal, the astral, and the physical?
I like working and thinking on the causal level, but it's difficult to do because, well, nobody talks about it in the West. In the East they do.
Causal meaning the fundamental plane that impacts everything else.
Yeah.
So if you can change the causal plane, then that will be reflected in the astral or spiritual and the physical in the body.
Yes, exactly.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your idea and your intention behind you actually creating this technology. Are you saying that it was created with the intention to directly impact and change the causal plane?
Yes.
And when you change the causal plane, you kind of change everything else because it will reflect in both the astral and the physical plane.
Yes.
Why don't we dive deeper into how the technology actually works piece by piece? I know that a big piece of it has to do with, of course, conscious expansion, creating a coherent, energetic environment in the room for the body and the mind to synchronize with. But I'd like to go into the actual elements and break it down in your own understanding and your own expression and explanation of how this works. So let's break it down piece by piece. We could start with, right over here, the first element, polychromatic light therapy. So I know that the first version of your technology was actually in black and white in 1989. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what caused you to bring in the color aspect into it? I know as you worked on later versions, you added more color combinations and different options for colors and wavelengths. Can you sort of elaborate on that?
The colors are set to touch the astral and causal nodes that are very susceptible to color change.
When you're talking about nodes, are you referring to like energy centers in the body?
Yes.
So I guess the best way to translate that into real simple terms is take red light therapy or blue light therapy. It's just full spectrum color. Now you intended for it on the spiritual aspect of things. And now the implication and consequence of that is actually impacting the physical aspect of things as well. As you're saying, you're starting on the causal, your focus was done on the astral, but there's this whole other thing going on the physical.
Yes, exactly.
I want to go to another element of how this technology works with the scrolling of light and what most people see as just a code scrolling up and down on the screen. Now I know that that code is intentional. You call it the meta matrix. We could speak about that in just a moment, but I want to focus on the scrolling affirmations for a moment. Now, while most people see this as a code scrolling, me and you know that it's actually positive affirmations in English that were translated into a different font. Before we speak about the font and the meta matrix, why scrolling? Why not just have it say, love, you're amazing, abundance?
You need motion with the display in order to really generate an effect. Otherwise, it's just blah and flat. It's like you look at a picture in a museum and it's Picasso and it's wonderful, but you know, there's nothing really flowing there. And you could feel them. I can feel them here. Usually I can feel them about 2 miles out. Other people also pick them up about that far out, which I thought, that's pretty good.
So I see you're placing a big focus when it comes to the scrolling aspect of it, of wanting energy to flow and move instead of being stagnant. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how does what you did over here tie into what you learned throughout your experiences with diving deeper into transcendental meditation, chanting, and so on and so forth? Was that more stagnant, or was that also flowing and you just wanted to find a way to bring it into the computer?
It's both. Some of it is flowing, like if you're doing chanting, it's supposed to be new and invigorating.
And yet, sometimes chanting is very repetitive.
Yes.
So you wanted to take the short frequency of repetition out of it and have a renewed energy constantly.
Yeah.
Because I know with the linguistics on the screen, you are repeating them, but it's not one line after another. It's a long aspect of linguistics that will keep repeating itself.
Yes.
So your main intention was more so renewed energy and movement.
And that's very causal type. Chanting is a function of the mind and the body, both. So when you select a color composition, it has colors that I've selected almost like a composer would compose a song. These are like color songs.
Well, the body is a map of color, as you know. So when you're composing an orchestra in a way of color, you're then synchronizing with the body in a different way, or having the body synchronize with harmonious movements of energy, and in this case, color.
You got it.
So you have your polychromatic light therapy. That's the purpose of a bunch of different colors, full spectrum light therapy instead of just like red light or blue light. You have your scrolling motions to keep the energy moving instead of keeping it stagnant. Renew the energy over and over again.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the font. You could have easily kept this in English. Why did you go the extra mile to create what you call the MetaMatrix font instead of just using the English language?
Yeah, what I wanted to do is create a font that had both horizontal and vertical aspects to it that can interconnect. The MetaMatrix font is more abstract and interconnected between the lines on the screen. The connection goes from top to bottom, whereas English only has a single horizontal connection.
So you're saying on English you get the horizontal connection to a degree because it goes from left to right or even right to left, even though you can't read it that way. But on this specific font, you have your horizontal connectivity, your vertical connectivity, and that I guess would give you a better energetic flow.
Yes, exactly.
Is there any other aspect to why the MetaMatrix font?
Yes, the MetaMatrix font makes it easier to interconnect the different phrases and sentences as things are moving. You know, it's like a plant putting out roots. It puts out a network of roots, not just a single root. English is like a single root plant.
I understand. Is there an aspect to it of, you know, when you're looking at something, take a song, and you're meditating to a song, and the lyrics are in English versus a song where the lyrics are in a language you don't understand. For me, it's a lot easier to drop much deeper into the meditation when I'm listening to something I don't understand because I just hear sound instead of words that I understand. Now my brain is working.
Yeah.
Was that intentional?
Yes.
On the topic of intention, I want to go to another element of what makes this specific technology and this version of the technology something that's unique, one of its kind, and something that nobody else has anywhere around the world. And that's a function that you included here called the intentionality function. Can you share a little bit more about what this intentionality function is and why you incorporated it into your newer versions of this technology?
The intentionality capabilities allow you to enter your own intentions, and that affects which characters are appearing on the screen. So it's a very powerful aspect that I don't think most people really understand, but that's okay. The nice part about the intentionality function is that as soon as you hit the enter key, all the internal mathematical generators reset to that new function and go from there.
You know, it's amazing with the intentionality itself. I always connect it to Dr. Masaru Emoto, the Japanese scientist who did his studies on water and intentionality. And what he showed us, as you know, is positive affirmations, positive intentionality will positively impact the body, restructuring the water, allowing for energy and electricity to move in a more coherent and sort of flowing way. Was that part of your intentions, no pun intended, but was that part of your intentions when creating the intentionality function?
Yes.
And is the intentionality function an important part of interacting with what you call the causal plane?
Oh, very much so.
Can you explain how?
Well, since the causal plane is abstract mental, if you've got something that affects the astral, i.e. the linguistics that's running, and the physical, the actual display, that gives the causal aspect a lot of power, the intentionality a lot of power. I've seen people put in strange intentionalities, you know, like American Indian chants, and they put some of that, and bam, you can feel it right then.
So it's tapping into the causal plane to then impact the astral and the physical.
Oh, yes.
So I know you've also incorporated a timing aspect into this with how the screens will move, at what point they will move, the speed functions, and so on and so forth. But my quick question for you before we dive deeper into results, studies, and sort of next steps with where you're at today in life and what's going on with the technology itself has to do with numerology. When you created the timing function, you can do something like 888 or 222. I know on your newest version, you can go up to 7,200 seconds as opposed to 3,600, which is what you had in past versions. Is numerology a piece of the timing function to basically have intentionality in a different language? Like 222 means something else than 888, then means something else than 1313, and so on and so forth.
Yes, but I'm not an expert in numerology, so I can't really speak to it other than providing the capability for people to utilize it as they wish.
So it's more so you were aware of the ability, you're not the expert in numerology, but you wanted to include that function to have the energy of numbers as well.
Yes.
What other changes were made from your older variations to the newest variation that makes this the best one in the world? I know that it used to be black and white, now it's colorful.
Initially, the scrolling was only one direction and everything was lined up to the left edge. And then I realized, oh, I need to take and, provide more of a horizontal type of spacing along with the vertical interconnect of the matrix font.
So are you meaning to say that all of these lines were not scattered in the way that they are, but they were all pushed to the left? Why did you feel the need to scatter them accordingly?
It is more of a living system with the scrolling happening like this.
So it's more dynamic, there's more flow, the energy is moving in a more coherent way.
Yes.
Got it. I want to dive a little bit into the studies, the results, some of the stories that we're seeing, because people are having incredible results thanks to what you created for one purpose and now is having all these other implications. But I want to start with a man by the name of Dr. Victor Marcial Vega. Are you familiar with him?
Oh yeah, we talk on the phone occasionally.
So I know he actually did a study on your technology back in 2001, and there's a video of him speaking about it where he explains the results that he actually saw that blew his own mind as a doctor on the outcomes and the impacts of this technology. And he said himself, he doesn't even understand how it all works, but it's working.
My name is Victor Marcial Vega. I'm a radiation oncologist, and I was just directing the first integrated medicine research symposium. I've been doing research since 2001 in systems that Robert Religa has developed. And I did a 20-page research report back then in the earlier versions of these systems, which showed that whenever I put patients for 2 hours, because I did a dose response curve that showed that every single patient that was in the presence of this technology for 2 hours will get into a very deep state of relaxation, which allowed them to get the healing they needed. I know that if I can get a patient to a relaxed state and relaxed enough for long enough, they will heal from any situation. So this is very important. Not only do we get very, very accelerated deep meditation with this system, once they're in that meditation, healing can occur much easier. And I've had patients that had organic changes, improvement in their blood, improvement in their pain, in tumors, also improvements in eye health. I've had people that have been completely blind from retinal detachments and completely recovered their vision when they were put in such a system. So it's definitely been an interesting thing, because I was not used to using electromagnetic devices or technologies in my medical practice. It was usually drugs or radiation, chemotherapy, or surgery. But now we're dealing with electromagnetic frequencies and other things that we don't quite understand, but they do work.
So Robert, there's been many studies with your technology, not just the one in 2001. There's been more current ones as well. Studies that show the lengthening of telomeres, studies that show the increasing of cellular charge, increased mitochondrial activity in the cell, studies that show the fact that it's helping your pH become a lot more stabilized. Now, this is all on the physical plane. On the astral plane, studies that show people that are sitting around it actually be able to dive into deeper states of meditation in just minutes. So you were having like a lot of spiritual experiences when you first started all of this.
Yeah.
I find it amazing because there are people with, really a lot of issues, whether they're severe or mild or not as mild, that are having incredible results. They're having incredible results, and it's just cool to me because, you know, some of the greatest inventions in the world were discovered by accident. And when inventors even discover it by accident or make something, they have one intention and there's 10 or 100 or 1,000 other things that come out of it. And it sounds like this isn't really that much different.
No, it isn't. Except I intended it to do this.
Spiritually speaking.
Yes.
I want to segue into a very important topic as we approach closer to the end of this conversation. When it comes to clarity on past conflicts with this technology. A few years ago, I interviewed a woman by the name of Sandra Rose Michael, somebody who you know very well, somebody who I know very well. And I just want to take this moment to say that this is not about bashing or taking anybody down. I just want to understand your past experiences with clarity, where you're at, what happened in your experience, how it's impacted you, the toll that it's taken on you, and how you're kind of integrating into a new and better life at this point. Just with full clarity and transparency here, I now know that she licensed this technology from you back in 2001. There's litigation going on now and, you know, a whole bunch of things going on surrounding that with conflicts that I hope to see resolved at some point in the near future. But what I found really crazy is I worked with her for 2.5, 3 years, and she never mentioned your name. The first time I heard about you was when you and your power of attorney, also named Robert, sent out an email. And that email was to many, many people that had that technology from a different source, not from you. And you wanted to share your story with these individuals saying, hey guys, I'm the creator, this is the story. So I'd love to start from the beginning in terms of your experiences with Sandra, all the way to where it's at today. But we could start with where and when did you meet her for the first time?
I'm going to back up 2 weeks from the time I met her. It became clear to me that I had to distribute this wider than I could do. I'm an engineer, scientist. So that's when I took a look around the house, and on top of one of the stacks of magazines was the Whole Life Expo catalog. I go, oh, this is interesting. Open it up, go flick, 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 and there was her picture. I go, oh, she's the one I'm supposed to meet. And so that weekend, I went over to the Whole Life Expo and listened to her do a talk, and she was, at that time, selling her previous linguistics on cassette tapes. And I'm thinking, well, okay.
When you say linguistics, are you talking about like guided meditations and affirmations?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I listened to her talk and realized that she had an incredible way of pulling audiences in. And I went up to meet her, after her talk. I said, if you ever come out to Orange County, look me up and I'll show you what I've got. And then a couple of months later, she showed up and she goes, my God, you can feel this going right through the house. And she goes, this is incredible. She'd never programmed a line of code in her life, which, that doesn't matter. I brought her in as a saleswoman, not as a design engineer.
And how did that go in the beginning when she came in as a salesperson?
It went reasonably well, but it started turning negative when she realized that she would always just be the salesperson, unless she made some kind of conscious claim that she had designed this.
Meanwhile, in your experience, the first time she saw it was in your home and she had that experience. It wasn't something that she created.
She didn't know what an algorithm was or how you'd implement it into a computer, and that you would come up with strange statements like, I have the software downloaded, through my guidance angels. No, you didn't.
But this was a whole download of instruction to create this after being recognized as one of the top healers on the planet. And it was a download of instruction to program technology to emulate my work. I'm going, you want me to... In fact, when I got told to do all this, I'm going, you got the right channel?
So I like to give credit where credit is due. My question for you is, while the licensing agreement between you guys from 2001 was very clear, It said that she had the intellectual property rights to her body of light linguistics, which was a piece of the technology, and you owned the source code exclusively. Before we get into that, my question for you is, just to give credit where credit is due, did she have any part in making the technology better or adding to the technology in any way?
No, she did not affect the technology at all. And the best example of that is a record. You can stamp 1 million copies of a record, and they're all the same. You can have a song, or you can have a tape recorder. A tape recorder is technology, and a song is artistry. And there's an absolute, line between the two. And I created both the technology and the artistry.
Meaning with your different types of linguistics that you implemented. So is it fair to say that the only thing that she included, not to take away from what she included, but the only thing she included was her own linguistics and affirmations?
Yes.
Almost like what was being sold on the tape recorders when you first met her at that expo?
Yes. That's exactly what it was.
And on the topic of linguistics, I mean, you're not using those linguistics anymore. I know that you're using up to 4 different other types of linguistics. So are linguistics and affirmations something that multiple people sort of contributed to the base technology that you created?
Yes.
Can you give me an example of one person?
Oh, Carol. Oh, I forgot Carol's last name.
Carol Joyce?
Yeah.
I saw her on the linguistics.
Yeah, she created a linguistic based on one of her guru's teachings. And so I showed her how to program it into the computer.
Was there anybody else involved in implementing different types of linguistics into the software?
Yes, Chris Kaufman.
He was the guy that you were working with before Light System.
Yes.
Robert, a lot of people have asked me to ask you, why haven't you spoken up sooner? Why did you wait over 20 years to share this story publicly?
It was because it was difficult to speak up. I didn't have a platform. I wasn't a public speaker. I needed help on handling that kind of aspect. I spent $100,000 on Chris Kaufman's attorney defending his ability to sell.
To your defense, I know that you were sending legal letters and cease and desist and doing whatever you could already in the very beginning, 2002, 2003, 2004. But why didn't you sue sooner?
I didn't have the money back then.
And what's changed today that you're able to move forward on that path?
Now, the reason I can move forward now is because the Light System has provided me enough cash to be able to retain attorneys. In my opinion, she has placed her image out there, and without the synchronicity engine software, she basically can sell cassette tapes of lectures she's done for $10 as opposed to $100,000 for a system. So she'll fight tooth and nail to maintain the image that she created the software.
I also find it very interesting where when you say, she's not a programmer and she doesn't know how to do those things, I just find it interesting that ever since 20 years ago, even what she's selling has never been updated. I mean, on their own splash screen, it says May something 2003. And yet any technology company out there with the creator behind that technology company, look at any company, there's always evolutions. Look at the iPhone. It started with the 3G. Now we're on the iPhone 16. Look at yours. You started with other versions. By the time you met her, you were at version 7. Now you're on version 8.6, a much more expansive version because that's what creators do.
My intention is always to make the technology better, make it applicable for what people are looking for.
Robert, I find it incredible that you're still here and kicking and moving with everything that you've actually been through. A lot of people ask, they say, if Robert created this technology, why hasn't he been using it up until recently? Because I know the past 7 months you've been using it a lot more. But why haven't you used it for such a long period of time?
Well, I haven't been using the technology much because of what it reminded me of, the problems with Sandra, the problems with her son, the problems with, other people.
You mentioned other people. I know that even more recently, I mean, you've been dealing with a lot. You had a kidnapping attempt. There were two men that tried to steal your technology outside of the whole situation that's going on, steal your technology and take you out of the state. Can you share a little bit more about that before we start closing this up?
Yeah, there's some people that made some claims as to how they would help me and how they, generate thousands and tens of thousands of dollars worth of sales. But it just didn't feel right.
And these were the same guys that actually essentially broke into a home to try and take you out.
Yes.
With everything that you've been through, starting with your father, a tough childhood, to a lot of crazy stuff that just went on throughout your life, to more specifically over the past 30 years with everything that we spoke about here, where does forgiveness play a role in your life?
I'm working on it. Sometimes I make some headway. Other times I just put it away and damn stuff pops back in.
When it comes to your father, when it comes to what's been going on with Sandra and that whole situation for quite some time, when it comes to even the most recent thing that happened with those guys, with the kidnapping attempt, are you willing to get to a point of forgiveness? Because ultimately it's going to help you with your health.
Doing my best, and I'm working on it.
What have you learned throughout this journey about patience, divine timing, speaking your truth?
Patience does seem to be the key aspect in dealing with this matter. Trying to push it any faster, any harder, it just pushes my boat into the rapids. And, I'm being bounced around on the rocks. It's much better just to walk along the shore and observe the passage of time and events.
It sounds like trusting the process is a big piece of it.
Yes.
What would you say to anybody who's ever had their work taken away from them or their voice silenced?
I think about Tesla and the person who invented the television set. There was a guy, he was kind of a amateur electronics, and he's the one that came up with the idea of scanning line by line. But one of the titans of industry stole his concept, and even though he had patented it, this titan of industry basically drove him bankrupt with filing incidentals on the lawsuit. So, as much as you can try, there'll be times when circumstances you can't get around them.
Well, you're the opposite situation. You came to a point where it might have taken you a long time, but look, you're sitting here 30 years later and there's justice coming your way. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel good that I've been able to attain a certain level of tolerance and forgiveness.
When it comes to your vision for humanity, for the future, what do you hope will happen with the light system? Right now, it's in many, many places all around the world. A lot of people are experiencing incredible effects as well. But how do you hope it continues to be used in the world? And what effect do you want to see it have on the world, big picture and long term?
I hope it provides a positive shift in consciousness.
If you could pass on one message to the next generation of inventors, what would it be?
May the force be with you.
Robert, I want to say thank you very, very much for your time today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And for everybody that's watching, this was a long overdue interview. Robert's been going through his own healing process and will continue to do that. As you all know, and now you know firsthand from this actual conversation, interview, Robert's not a doctor. He's a simple man with a vision. And that vision came from his experiences of being a programmer, his experiences in learning computer science, coupled with his knowledge and experience of the spiritual world, starting with Ram Dass, as you said, and moving to other teachers over the years. This technology, the light system, is a combination of both Robert's knowledge in computer science and computer programming, and Robert's knowledge and experience when it comes to spirituality. and meditation. It's something that's helping many, many people all around the world. And I say that with full confidence because I've seen it happen firsthand. The light system technology is in many wellness centers and meditation centers and clinics all around the world right now. But the goal is to see it reach even more people, not just in personal homes, but in professional commercial settings as well. So if you want to learn more, make sure to go to thelightsystems.com or simply use the link in the description below this video. Every time you spread the word about this, you're not just supporting the technology and what it stands for, but you're supporting Robert as well in his life's work and his mission to make this world a more conscious place, first and foremost. You can also go to unifiedhealing.com to find a center near you. Centers on unifiedhealing.com represent many different types of wellness modalities, with one of the main focuses being the light system technology. So make sure to check it out. Thelightsystems.com is where you can learn more. Robert, God bless you. Thank you for being on this mission. Thank you for making this possible. And thank you for speaking your truth.
Thank you.